Ambassador Crixvoth stood in the grand hall of the Galactic Federation Council, his 4 eyes blinking in confusion at the strange creature before him. The human was smaller than most species in the Federation. She had soft skin, no claws, no armor plates, and no visible weapons. Yet every diplomat in the room kept their distance from her. Even the Voraxian warriors, known for eating their enemies alive, stepped back when she walked past them. The human smiled and extended her hand. "Ambassador Sarah Chen," she said, "Earth Federation, pleasure to meet you." Crixvoth noticed something strange attached to her uniform. It was a small metal plate with words written in the common galactic script. He leaned closer to read it. "Warning, human diplomat. May exhibit unpredictable behavior including but not limited to excessive friendliness, physical contact rituals, consumption of toxic substances, irrational bravery, pack bonding with non-humans, creative problem-solving outside established protocols, and persistence beyond reasonable limits. Approach with caution. Do not challenge to physical or mental competition unless prepared to lose." Crixvoth's eyes went wide. He looked at the other Federation members. They all nodded slowly, their faces showing a mix of respect and fear. "What is this?" Crixvoth asked, pointing at the warning label. The old Tellurian beside him, a creature that looked like a walking crystal formation, made a sound like grinding stones. It was their way of sighing. "You are new to the council, young ambassador," the Tellurian said. "You do not know the history. Come, let me tell you why we added those labels. It started 20 standard years ago when the first human diplomats arrived." The Tellurian led Crixvoth to a quiet corner of the great hall. The walls here were covered with historical records, glowing screens that showed important moments in Federation history. "The humans came from a death world," the Tellurian began. "We knew this. Their planet Earth has extreme temperatures, powerful storms, dangerous radiation from their star, and predators everywhere. We expected them to be monsters. Instead, they sent us Ambassador James Wilson." The screen showed an image of a middle-aged human male. He was smiling and waving at the camera. He looked completely harmless. Ambassador Wilson arrived at the station and immediately began what humans call making friends. He would walk up to species he had never met before and start conversations. He learned names. He remembered details about their home worlds. He asked about their families. Crixvoth tilted his head. "That sounds normal." The Tellurian made the grinding sound again. "To you, perhaps, but consider the Drakthar. They are a species that shows emotion through chemical signals. They had never experienced what humans call small talk. When Ambassador Wilson spent 3 hours talking to their representative about Drakthar breeding patterns, simply because he was interested, the Drakthar thought he was trying to form a mating bond." "Oh," Crixvoth said. "Indeed, the Drakthar representative proposed marriage. Ambassador Wilson had to explain that he was already married to a human female. The Drakthar then offered to add his wife to the marriage group. It took months to sort out the cultural misunderstanding." The screen changed to show another incident. This one featured a human female diplomat surrounded by a group of Zix warriors. The Zix were insect-like creatures, standing nearly 3 meters tall with razor-sharp limbs. "This was Ambassador Patricia Moore," the Tellurian explained. "During a border dispute, the Zix threatened to destroy a human colony. They expected the humans to surrender or flee. Instead, Ambassador Moore walked into the Zix war camp alone." "That seems unwise," Crixvoth said. The Zix thought so too. They laughed at her. One of them, a warrior named Chickstick, grabbed her arm with his cutting limb. He could have sliced her in half. The Tellurian paused. Ambassador Moore looked at the blood running down her arm. Then she looked at Chickstick. Then she smiled. She said, and I quote from the official records, "Is that the best you can do? My grandmother hits harder than that and she's been dead for 10 years. Crixvoth's 4 eyes blinked rapidly. She insulted him while injured. She did more than that. When Chickstick raised his limb to strike again, she grabbed it. The other Zix watched in shock as this small, bleeding human held onto their warrior's limb and refused to let go. She stared into his eyes and said, "Now we can talk like adults, or we can keep playing games. Your choice." What happened? The Zix respected her. In their culture, someone who faces death without fear is worthy of honor. Chickstick withdrew his forces and agreed to negotiate. He later became one of the strongest supporters of Human-Zix alliance. He sent Ambassador Moore a gift every year until his death. The Tellurian touched the screen, bringing up more records. But the incident that truly convinced the Council to add warning labels happened 5 years after first contact. It involved Ambassador Robert Kim and the Void Plague. Crixvoth had heard of the Void Plague. It was a terrible disease that had killed millions across the galaxy. There was no cure. The plague struck a space station near human territory, the Tellurian continued. The station housed 300,000 beings from 50 different species. Federation protocol demanded quarantine, no ships in or out. Let the plague burn itself out. A cruel but necessary measure, Crixvoth said. That is what we thought, the Tellurian said. But the humans disagreed. Ambassador Kim sent a message to the Federation Council. He said humans had something called medical research teams and they wanted to help. The Council refused. The risk of spreading the plague was too high. The crystal creature paused, its inner lights flickering with what might have been amusement. Ambassador Kim acknowledged the Council's decision. Then he ignored it completely. He what? He and a team of human scientists took a small ship and flew to the quarantine zone. When the Federation patrol ships tried to stop them, the humans turned off their communications and kept flying. The patrol commander was so confused that, by the time he decided to open fire, the human ship had already landed on the station. Crixvoth could not believe what he was hearing. They flew into a plague zone, on purpose. Yes, and it gets stranger. The human scientists worked for 37 days straight. They barely slept. They consumed dangerous amounts of a stimulant called coffee. 3 of them got sick with the plague. They kept working anyway, using themselves as test subjects. The Tellurian's voice held something like wonder. On day 38 they found a cure, not just a treatment, a complete cure. They saved 280,000 lives on that station. The 3 sick scientists recovered fully. That's incredible, Crixvoth said. The Council did not know how to respond. Ambassador Kim had broken at least 12 Federation laws, but he had also done something that no other species had managed in 500 years of trying. When asked why he did it, he said something that still confuses our philosophers. What did he say? The Tellurian accessed the record. Ambassador Kim's voice filled the air. Someone had to help. There were kids on that station. What kind of people would we be if we just let them die because of some rule? Crixvoth tried to process this. In his culture, rules existed for good reasons. You followed them. The idea that you would break rules because of emotional attachment to strangers was deeply strange. The Tellurian seemed to sense his confusion. This is why we needed the warning labels. Humans do not think like other species. They form emotional bonds with anyone. They will risk their lives for people they have never met. They will break any rule, face any danger if they believe it is the right thing to do. That sounds dangerous. It is dangerous, but it is also why they are so valuable. Come, let me show you more. They walked through the hall, passing groups of diplomats from dozens of species. Crixvoth noticed that every human he saw wore the same warning label. Some labels were larger than others. Some had additional warnings attached. He pointed to a human male whose label was covered in extra notes. Why does that one have so many warnings? The Tellurian looked and made a sound like cracking ice. Ah, that is Ambassador Marcus Stone. He holds the Federation record for most diplomatic incidents in a single year. What did he do? Where do I begin? In his first month, he adopted a Venthian orphan. The Venthians do not have a concept of adoption. They were convinced he was claiming the child as a slave. It took weeks to explain. The Tellurian continued walking. In his second month, he entered a drinking contest with a Colothian ambassador. Colothians have 3 livers and produce their own alcohol. No one has ever outdrunk a Colothian. Did he lose? He should have died. The amount of alcohol he consumed was enough to kill most species 3 times over. Instead, he woke up the next morning, complained of a headache, and asked for something called hair of the dog. The Colothians were so impressed that they joined every trade agreement he proposed for the next 5 years. Crixvoth stared at the human called Marcus Stone. The man was currently talking to a group of Sylph, a species made entirely of liquid metal. He was making them laugh. Crixvoth did not know that Sylph could laugh. In his third month, the Tellurian went on, he discovered that his assistant was being threatened by a Mordex crime boss. The Mordex are not Federation members. They operate in the dark spaces between systems. They have killed thousands of beings. What did Ambassador Stone do? He flew to the Mordex home world. Alone. He walked into the crime boss's headquarters, put a human device called a grenade on the table, and said that if anything happened to his assistant, he would come back with more friends and more grenades. Crixvoth's mouth fell open. He threatened a Mordex crime boss. The Mordex found it hilarious. They had never met someone so crazy. They agreed to leave the assistant alone. Then they offered Ambassador Stone a job. He declined, but they still send him gifts every festive season. They reached a large viewing window that looked out into space. A beautiful nebula painted the darkness with colors of purple and gold. The warning labels were created after an emergency council session, the Tellurian explained. Too many species were being caught off guard by human behavior. The Yithrak ambassador had a nervous breakdown after a human hugged her. The collective of mind almost declared war when a human referred to their hive queen as sweetie. So the labels warn other species about what to expect. Partly, they also serve another purpose. The Tellurian's lights dimmed, a sign of seriousness. They remind us that humans are not like us. They may look weak, they may seem foolish, but underestimating them is a grave mistake. As if to prove the point, a commotion arose from the other side of the hall. Crixvoth turned to see Ambassador Sarah Chin standing in the middle of a group of Thornex warriors. The Thornex were massive beings, covered in sharp spines. They were known for their short tempers and their love of violence. One of the Thornex was pointing at Chen and growling. His translator device crackled. "You insult our honor. You say our claims to the mining rights are invalid." Ambassador Chen stood perfectly still. She did not back away. She did not show fear. Instead, she tilted her head and said, "I didn't say they were invalid. I said they were poorly documented. There's a difference. If you want those mining rights, I can help you file the proper paperwork. It's not hard. We can do it together." The Thornex warrior blinked. "You would help us." "Of course. That's what I'm here for. Besides, I heard your planet makes excellent fermented drinks. Maybe you could teach me about them while we work on the forms." The Thornex warrior seemed completely lost. He had come prepared for a fight. He had not expected an offer of friendship and alcohol. "This is acceptable," the warrior finally said. His spines, which had been raised in aggression, slowly lowered. The Tellurian made a sound like chiming bells. "You see, this is why the warning labels exist. Any other species would have responded to the Thornex threat with force or submission. The human turned it into an opportunity for cooperation. It is maddening and effective at the same time." Crixvoth watched as Ambassador Chen led the confused Thornex warrior toward a seating area. Within minutes, she had all 5 Thornex warriors sitting around a table, looking at holographic documents and actually paying attention. I have a question, Krixvoth said. The warning labels mention pack bonding with non-humans. What does that mean? The Tellurian's lights flickered in a pattern that suggested hesitation. Ah, that is perhaps the most dangerous aspect of human nature, and also the most wonderful. They walked to another section of the historical records. The screen showed an image of a human male surrounded by creatures of various species. He was smiling. They were all smiling, in whatever way their species could smile. Humans evolved as social creatures, the Tellurian explained. They lived in groups. They needed those groups to survive. But unlike most species, humans did not limit their social bonds to their own kind. What do you mean? On their home world, humans formed bonds with other species. They adopted dangerous predators as companions. They treated prey animals as family members. They named plants. They talked to machines. They have an overwhelming desire to connect with everything around them. Krixvoth thought about this. That seems inefficient. Perhaps, but it means that when humans decide you are part of their pack, they will do anything to protect you. They will fight for you. They will die for you. They will cross the galaxy to bring you home if you are lost. The Tellurian brought up another record. 3 years ago, a Federation research station was attacked by pirates. 60 scientists from 12 species were taken hostage. The pirates demanded impossible ransoms. Most species began negotiations to recover their own citizens. What did the humans do? Only 4 of the hostages were human. The logical response would have been to negotiate for just those 4. Instead, the humans sent a military team to rescue all 60 hostages. All of them, why? The Tellurian accessed an audio record. A human voice spoke. Those scientists worked together. They ate together. They celebrated birthdays together. They were a family. We don't leave family behind. The rescue was successful, the Tellurian added. The humans lost 3 soldiers, saving 56 non-human scientists. When the Federation offered to compensate them for their losses, the human commander said, and I quote, "Compensation. Those were our friends in there. We would have lost 300 if that's what it took." Krixvoth felt something strange in his chest. He did not have a word for it in his language. The closest translation might be moved. The other species remembered this, the Tellurian said. They remembered that humans came for them when no one else would. After that, every species on that station became strong allies of humanity, not because of treaties or trade agreements, because of gratitude, because they were now part of the human pack. A loud alarm suddenly filled the hall. Red lights flashed on the walls. Diplomats from every species looked around in confusion. "Warning," an automated voice announced. "Unidentified ships approaching the station. Configuration matches Ravek's war fleet. All personnel prepare for possible evacuation." Krixvoth felt his blood run cold. The Raveks were not Federation members. They were raiders who attacked stations, stripped them of resources, and killed everyone inside. A Ravek's war fleet had not been seen in Federation space for decades. Panic spread through the hall. Diplomats rushed toward the exits. Guards shouted orders. The organized gathering dissolved into chaos. But Krixvoth noticed something strange. The humans were not running. Ambassador Sarah Chen stood in the center of the hall, speaking into a communication device. Her face was calm. Her voice was steady. Around her, the other human diplomats had formed a loose group. They were talking quickly, making plans. "What are they doing?" Krixvoth asked. The Tellurian watched with ancient, knowing eyes. "They are being human." Ambassador Chen's voice cut through the chaos. "Everyone, please calm down. The evacuation transports cannot hold all of us. We need to organize by species and vulnerability. Children and medical cases first. Security personnel with me." A Voraxian warrior pushed past a group of smaller beings. "Why should we listen to you, human? This is not your station." Chen turned to face him. She was half his size with no claws or natural weapons, but something in her eyes made the warrior pause. "You're right," she said. "This isn't my station. These aren't my people. I have a ship that can get me and my team out of here in 5 minutes. We could leave right now and be safe." She looked around the hall at the frightened faces of 100 different species. "But we're not leaving. Not until everyone gets out. Because that's what humans do. So you can either help us save everyone, or you can stand there arguing while the Raveks get closer. Your choice." The Voraxian stared at her for a long moment. Then he nodded. "Tell me what to do." Within minutes, the humans had organized the entire hall. Marcus Stone was leading a group of mixed species toward the evacuation shuttles. Another human diplomat was coordinating with station security. Chen herself was studying a holographic map of the station, marking defensive positions. "There," she pointed. "These corridors can be sealed. If we can slow them down there, we buy time for the shuttles." A station security officer, a being made of living stone, shook his head. "Those corridors have no defensive value. Anyone who holds them will die." Chen nodded. "I know I'll need volunteers." "Ambassador, that is suicide." She smiled. It was not a happy smile. "Maybe, but those shuttles need 20 more minutes to load everyone. Someone has to buy that time." Crixvoth watched in disbelief as 5 human diplomats, including Ambassador Chen, gathered near the corridor entrance. They were joined by a handful of beings from other species who had been inspired by their courage. Marcus Stone handed out weapons from an emergency locker. "You don't have to do this," Crixvoth heard himself say. He didn't know why he spoke. He had known the human for less than an hour. Chen looked at him and smiled. "Of course I do. There are children on those shuttles, families, good people who came here to talk about peace and trade. They deserve to go home. But you might die. Everyone dies eventually. What matters is what you do with the time you have." She checked her weapon. "Besides, I've read about the Raveks. They're tough, but they're not that smart, and they've never fought humans before." "What does that matter?" Chen's smile turned fierce. "It matters because they don't know what we can do. They see a small, soft species with no natural weapons. They think we'll be easy targets. They have no idea what they're about to face." The station shook as the Ravek ships began docking. Warning alerts flashed everywhere. The last evacuation shuttle was still loading passengers. "Go," Chen said to Crixvoth. "Get on that shuttle. Tell the galaxy what happened here today. Tell them that humans stood with you." The Tellurian pulled Crixvoth toward the shuttle bay. As they moved through the crowd, Crixvoth kept looking back. He saw the small group of defenders take their positions. He heard Chen's voice giving orders, calm and confident. The shuttle doors began to close. "Wait," Crixvoth said. He didn't know what he was doing. His body moved before his mind could stop it. He jumped off the shuttle. The Tellurian called after him, but the doors sealed and the shuttle launched. Crixvoth stood alone in the empty bay for a moment. Then he ran toward the corridors. When he arrived, Chen looked at him with surprise. "What are you doing here? You should be on that shuttle." Crixvoth picked up a weapon from the floor. His 4 eyes focused on the corridor ahead. "You said something earlier about what kind of people you would be if you let others die." "Yeah. I have been asking myself that question. What kind of person would I be if I left you to fight alone?" He checked the weapon like he had seen the humans do. "I would not like that person." Chen stared at him for a long moment, then she laughed. It was a warm sound full of genuine affection. "You're back now, Ambassador. Welcome to the team." The station trembled as the Raveks breached the outer doors. Heavy footsteps echoed through the corridors. The defenders raised their weapons. The first Raveks appeared around the corner. It was massive, covered in dark armor, with 4 arms each holding a different weapon. Its eyes glowed red with predatory hunger. Behind it, more Raveks warriors filled the corridor. The lead Ravix stopped when it saw the small group of defenders. It made a sound that might have been laughter. "This is your defense, a handful of soft creatures. We will crush you in moments." Chen stepped forward. "You want to know something funny? Every enemy humanity has ever faced said something like that. The dinosaurs thought they ruled the earth. The ice ages thought they could kill us. Every predator, every plague, every natural disaster thought we were easy prey." She raised her weapon. "They were all wrong, and so are you." The Ravix charged. What happened next would become legend in the Federation. The battle lasted 43 minutes. The small group of defenders, led by humans, held off a force 20 times their size. They used every trick, every strategy, every ounce of creativity they had. When the Ravix tried to flank them, Marcus Stone collapsed a ceiling section to block the path. When they tried to use explosives, Chen figured out how to redirect the station's fire suppression system to flood the corridor with cooling foam, making the Ravix weapons malfunction. When all seemed lost, a young human diplomat named David Park jury-rigged a maintenance bot into a mobile explosive device. "How did you know that would work?" Crixvoth shouted over the noise of battle. "I didn't," Park shouted back, grinning like a madman. "I saw it in a movie once." By the time Federation reinforcements arrived, the Ravix had lost half their fighters. The rest were retreating in confusion. They had never encountered anything like this. These soft, weak creatures fought like cornered animals, with no regard for their own safety. The defenders had suffered losses. 3 had died, including 1 human. 7 were badly wounded, but they had held. Every single evacuation shuttle had escaped safely. As medical teams rushed in to help the wounded, Crixvoth sat against a wall, exhausted. His body ached in places he didn't know could ache. One of his 4 eyes was swollen shut, but he was alive. Chen sat down next to him. She had a cut across her forehead and burns on her arms. She looked tired but satisfied. "You did good, Ambassador," she said. "That move with the emergency bulkhead, that was smart thinking." "I was terrified the entire time," Crixvoth admitted. "So was I," Chen smiled. "Bravery isn't about not being afraid. It's about being afraid and doing the right thing anyway." "Is that a human saying?" "Something like that." She put a hand on his shoulder. "You know, you're going to need a warning label now." 6 months later, Crixvoth stood in the Grand Hall of the Galactic Federation Council once again. The hall looked different now. New memorial plaques lined one wall, honoring those who had given their lives defending the station. The largest plaque bore the name of every defender who had stood in that corridor. Crixvoth looked at his own name on the list and felt a strange mix of pride and sadness. "Ambassador Crixvoth," a voice called. He turned to see a young diplomat from a species he didn't recognize. The young one's eyes were wide with curiosity. "Is it true?" the young diplomat asked. "Did you really fight alongside the humans against the Ravix?" Crixvoth nodded. "I did." "What was it like?" Crixvoth thought about the question. He thought about the fear, the chaos, the moment when he thought he would die. But he also thought about Chen's laughter, about Park's crazy grin, about the way Marcus Stone had protected a wounded defender with his own body. "It was the most terrifying experience of my life," he said honestly, "and also the most meaningful. The humans showed me something that day. They showed me what it means to truly care about others, even strangers, even enemies sometimes." The young diplomat looked confused. "Enemies?" "After the battle, when the Ravix were retreating, Ambassador Chen ordered us to let some of them go. She said that killing a beaten enemy serves no purpose. She said they should have the chance to go home and tell their people what happened." "That seems unwise." "I thought so too, but I was wrong." Crixvoth smiled, an expression he had learned from his human friends. The Ravix who survived that day went home with stories. Stories about creatures who fought with impossible courage. Creatures who showed mercy when they didn't have to. Within 3 months, the Ravix leadership requested a meeting with the Federation. Within 6 months, they signed their first peace treaty. The young diplomat's eyes went even wider. The Ravix made peace after hundreds of years of war. They did, and do you know who led those negotiations? Crixvoth pointed across the hall. Ambassador Sarah Chen, the same human who stood in that corridor with a weapon in her hands. Chen was easy to spot. She was surrounded by diplomats from a dozen species, all talking at once. A group of Ravix observers stood nearby, watching her with what might have been respect. One of them wore a small badge that marked him as a survivor of the station attack. She still wears the warning label, the young diplomat noted. They all do, but the labels have changed. Crixvoth touched his own uniform where a small metal plate now hung. Read mine. The young diplomat leaned close and read the words. Warning. Has been exposed to prolonged human contact. May exhibit symptoms including irrational bravery, excessive loyalty, tendency to protect strangers, and creative problem solving. Has officially been adopted into human pack structure. Approach with respect. You have a warning label too. The council decided that anyone who works closely with humans should wear one, Crixvoth explained. It's partly a joke, but it's also partly serious. Human behavior is contagious. He looked around the hall. He saw other beings wearing similar labels. The Thornax warrior who had almost attacked Chen now wore one, having become a regular at human diplomatic events. The Tellurian who had first explained human nature to Crixvoth wore one too. Even some of the Ravix observers had requested them. The humans changed us, Crixvoth said softly. Not through conquest or force. They changed us by being themselves, by showing us that there are other ways to exist, ways that involve courage and compassion and something they call hope. A familiar voice interrupted them. Crix, there you are. Ambassador Chen walked over, smiling broadly. The Colothian ambassador wants a rematch with Marcus. Can you believe it? 3rd time this year. Someone needs to tell her that she's not going to outdrink him. Crixvoth made the sound that humans had taught him to recognize as laughter. She is determined. That's what I like about her. Oh, and the Drakthar delegation arrived. Remember Ambassador Wilson, the one who accidentally almost got married. His daughter is here. She's following in his footsteps. Already started a 3-hour conversation with the new Drakthar representative. Should someone warn the Drakthar? Chen laughed. They've learned by now. Besides, I think they actually enjoy the attention. Turns out Drakthar get lonely too. Who knew? She noticed the young diplomat staring at her with wonder. Hello there, new to the council. The young diplomat could barely speak. You're Ambassador Chen. You led the defense of the station. You negotiated the Ravix peace treaty. You're a legend. Chen waved her hand dismissively. I'm just a person who did what needed to be done. Legends are for stories. Reality is much messier. She extended her hand, that strange human gesture of greeting. What's your name? Vextri of the Outer Colonies. Nice to meet you, Vextri. Come join us for drinks later. Marcus is about to attempt another record, and we could use someone to keep count. She walked away, already greeting other diplomats as she went. Within minutes, she had 3 more species engaged in animated conversation. Is she always like that? Vextri asked. Always, Crixvoth confirmed. It's exhausting and wonderful and dangerous and inspiring all at the same time. He looked at the young diplomat seriously. Let me give you some advice, Vextri. The warning labels on human diplomats are real. Every word is true. Humans will surprise you. They will confuse you. They will make you question everything you thought you knew about the universe. That sounds terrible. It is at first, but here's what the labels don't tell you. Crixvoth's 4 eyes grew warm with affection. They will also make you better, braver, more compassionate. They will show you that the galaxy is full of possibilities you never imagined. He began walking toward the group where Chen and the other humans had gathered. "Come, let me introduce you properly. I have a feeling you're about to become part of the pack." As they walked, Crixvoth reflected on everything that had happened since he first saw that strange warning label. He had been so confused then, so afraid of what humans might be. Now he understood. The Galactic Federation had added warning labels to all human diplomats for good reason, not to protect other species from humans, not even to warn them about human unpredictability. The labels existed because once you got to know humans, once you saw what they were capable of, once you understood the depth of their courage and compassion and stubborn refusal to give up, you were never quite the same again. The warning wasn't about the humans. The warning was about how meeting them would change you. And as Crixvoth joined his human friends for another evening of impossible stories and unlikely friendships, he smiled. He had been changed, and he wouldn't have it any other way.